What is up, though, Lions fans? This your boy Motor City Don P, and you know we are back once again for another version of the Detroit Lions NFC North report, week number 7. And all I got to say is big dub, big dub, big dub. And once again, the Motor City Cats are indeed back at it. We came to give you stats, not none of that static. Whatever you do, make sure you keep your Lions news pragmatic. There is a lot to talk about, a lot to break down, and let's just get right into it, man. The defense was phenomenal. The defense was phenomenal. The defense was phenomenal. Listen, Baker Mayfield was uncomfortable for the entire game. He was under immense pressure. He was rushing his throws. He was high over the top on so many throws. He missed high. He just didn't have anything going on in the pocket. What I told you guys before was I needed to see rush lane integrity. And in the first Aleem McNeil rush, where he put pressure up the middle on the second snap of the game, Baker did escape a little bit. He did escape a little bit, but not too much. And after that, there was nothing. There was nowhere for him to go, nowhere to escape to. He was not getting through the middle of that line. So shout out to the defense. And it had to be the defensive line because it couldn't have been anybody else. Because the secondary was the who's who of who he played for. Okay. Hi, my name is Eric Hallett. Who? Hi, my name is Rock Yassin. Who? Hi, my name is Hunter. I still don't know that man's name. I probably should look it up. Hi, my name is Arthur Mollett. I'm 32 years old. And last game, I came in wearing a bunch of wristbands on my arm for no particular reason, and I cut that out this time. I'm not saying that's why we won, but it was a welcome improvement. um, Hi, my name is Rock Yassin, and I've gone out with a cramp in my hamstring. They call it a cramp. Who came in for me? I don't know. Was it Arthur Mollett? Was it Trey Flowers? Did Kendall Fuller play? Did listen? As I said, the who's who of who he played for. Okay, um, and they did a phenomenal job as well. There should have been a penalty on the second play of the game where they were all lauding how Eric Hallett got his welcome to the NFL moment because um, Rashad White put his head down and just knocked him out, right? The problem is, crown of the helmet to initiate contact doesn't matter if it's a running back or anybody. That's a penalty. They didn't call it. The referees were, it looked like the fix was in sometimes, and then at other times it looked like the human side of the referees took over and they called the particularly correct calls. So I guess shout out to the referees for not, being all in 100% with the NFL mandate to still screw us over as much as possible. Because, they don't like us in New York right now. Yeah, because we exposed them. But anyway, so the defense did a much better job than anyone expected. Once you hear that Kirby Joseph was out, Brian Branch was out, DJ Reed was out, Terrion Arnold was out. Once you hear that every single member of your starting secondary is not going to be suiting up, is going to be in street clothes. Some not even on the sidelines, like Brian Branch. I don't believe he was allowed to be there. Once you hear that everyone who is anyone is not going to be on that field, you panic. But Aleem McNeil came in and gave you quality snaps. He gave you quality pressure up the middle. He gave you quality run stopping and run stuffing as he would. Man, Hutch gets held damn near every play. There's gonna need to be some more calls with that. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. You're grabbing them around the neck, you're grabbing them around the shoulders, you're doing everything you can to stop him from getting to your quarterback. And I get it, I understand. There was a play where he bull rushed my man Heck. That's a heck of a last name. It bull rushed Heck right into Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield had the wherewithal to move his feet, not get stepped on, trip and fall. Tyrus the Virus came in and had two sacks. Because these are some good players that we got here. Ray Agnew said these are some good guys, and they're gonna help out tremendously. You know what I'm saying on the field, and we so happy to be able to get those guys. And those guys really they come in and they know about football, even though they played with the Jacksonville Jaguars and things of that nature. They really know what they're doing, and we happy to get those guys. And those guys are gonna make a big contribution to the team. Now, Ragnu was technically correct. I mean, it only took Tyrus the Virus 7 weeks to do anything. Yeah, I don't consider that a big contribution, but you know what? He was there when we needed him to be there. One of those sacks was illegal. I'm not going to lie to you. He tripped the hell out of Baker Mayfield on the second one. The first one, he punched the ball out. And it rolled down the field, but he got a strip sack credited for that one. But I was overall impressed with everything I saw from the defense. I really wasn't down on the defense at all. Now the big thing coming out of the offense was Jahmyr Gibbs, my guy number 0, the electrician. Some people call him Sonic. Jahmyr Gibbs had 218 yards from scrimmage. My goodness. And he had his Javid Best moment. Y'all know that moment where Javid Best blew the roof off of Ford Field on Monday night playing against the Chicago Bears, took a handoff straight up the middle, 80 yards to the house. Boing boing, right? He did that. And Jahmyr Gibbs had that same situation that I've been calling for. It was 78 yards. It wasn't 80. I'll take it. Now I can stop calling for it because I wanted him to have that moment so I could officially move him into my number 2 all-time favorite Detroit Lions running backs. Javid Best was kind of my second favorite just because of the potential that he had. Like, he could have been Jahmyr Gibbs before Jahmyr Gibbs. You understand what I'm saying? But Jahmyr Gibbs is number 2 in my heart all by himself right now. Okay? So he did great. He busted a 78-yard run off. I think he had a total of 140 yards rushing. I can look it up right here in front of me because I got the box score because I keeps the box score handy. Let's see what he had. Let me see. Player stats. Okay. Jahmyr Gibbs, 17 carries, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Right? And then I think he had 82 yards receiving. So he did the damn thing. Rachaad White, on the other hand, had 10 carries for 38 yards, 3.8 yards per carry. Very paltry. Very paltry. Okay, indeed, very paltry indeed. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown had 6 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. Okay? But let's look at something else here from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay? Are y'all ready for this? Let's see. Receiving. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 receptions. Oh, it doesn't tell me how many targets he had. Amon-Ra St. Brown had about 50 targets. This is where I had the gripe about this game for the Detroit Lions. And I know people will say, a win is a win. This offense has got to get back. It's got to get better. It's got to get better. Okay? Listen to me. Okay? Jared Goff was 20 of 29 for 241 yards passing, a touchdown, and an interception. The Detroit Lions are known for the weapons. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs. We've got David Montgomery. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got Jameson Williams. We've got Sam LaPorta. We've got Khalif Raymond. We got Isaac Tesla, and so on and so forth. We got all the weapons that we need on offense. But for Jared Goff to have 241 yards and 168 of those yards to come from Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is a running back that had 4 less yards than your leading wide receiver, who you were forcing the ball to for the entire game to make up for the dropped pass on the 4th down last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. You weren't winning last week's game this week. It was over. Um, the next best thing was a guy who I didn't even mention in that list of weapons. It was Brock Wright. You know how many yards Brock Wright had to be the third leading receiver? 23. He had 23 yards on 3 receptions. You know who was next? David Montgomery had 2 receptions for 18 yards. You know who was next? Khalif Raymond, who had 3 receptions for 17 yards. You know who was next? Sam LaPorta, who had 3 receptions for 15 yards. You know who was next? Jameson Williams, who had 0 receptions for 0 yards. You know who was next? Isaac Tesla, who had 0 receptions for 0 yards. And you know why Isaac Tesla and Jameson Williams are on there and not someone like Dominic Lovett? Because they had targets. Jameson Williams had 2 targets. One of them was too low, the other one was way over his head. Isaac Tesla had one that was way over his head, and maybe it should have been called a pass interference. If TA was the one that was covering him on that play, it would have been pass interference for sure. So the only gripe that I have, okay, is about the offense. Guys, there are people who are numbers guys, and that's great. I like to combine both my eyes and what the numbers are saying because men lie, women lie, numbers also lie. Okay, people say men lie and women lie and numbers don't is false. Numbers lie a lot because numbers can tell you a whole lot of nothing. Remember Saquon Barkley? Saquon Barkley in New York was the king of 2 yards per carry, and then he would bust off an 80-yard run, and then he would be 4 yards per carry. Right? Now, we can't take away the 80-yard run, but the fact that he did nothing for 3 quarters and had an 80-yard run in the fourth is something because you've been bottled up for the entire game. Okay? Jahmyr Gibbs bust off that 78-yard run. Okay. But how many carries did he have? He had 17 carries. Okay. He had 17 carries. So let's break this down. What does he have? He had 17 carries for 136 yards. So let's just average that out. Let's say he had 140 yards. So he had 80 yards on 1 carry. Okay. And he had 60 yards on the rest of his 17 carries. Okay. So let's take off those 2 yards and say he was 16 carries for 58 yards on everything else. If you saw my NFC North report for the Green Bay Packers, I said to you that Josh Jacobs was 13 carries for 55 yards, and that wasn't great. So if 13 carries for 55 yards wasn't great, what is 16 for 58? That's also not great. And that's not Jahmyr Gibbs' fault. I'm not taking away the 78-yard run. I love the 78-yard run. My thing was this: the types of runs. Jahmyr Gibbs was getting in all types of space. The second time he touched the football, he ripped it off for 30 yards on a little dump off pass in space. He was already in space. I asked and I begged and I pleaded for Johnny Moe to get this man in space. And when you got him in space, he showed you what he could do. That 82 yards receiving was about Jahmyr Gibbs being in space. Right? The rushing, again, was not about him being in space because it was up the middle. He had a nice hole and he took that thing 78 yards up the middle to the house. Most of the time, he didn't have a nice hole. That's why the rest of the carries were 16 of them for 58 yards. Okay? Again, that's not horrible, but that's not great. What's that? If we do the quick math here, let's do the quick math. All right, open up my calculator. Let's do the quick math. So 58 divided by 16. That's 3.6 yards per carry. Okay. Now with the carry, the 78 yarder, right? So we had 136 divided by 17. Now that's 8 yards a carry. Okay. That's 8 yards a carry. So his average looked immaculate. It looked great. Okay. But if you take away that run, which you can't do, I'm just saying, how did the flow of the game go? That wasn't awesome. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. We need to go back to the drawing board because there's a lot of, again, numbers quoting. We're quoting the numbers. We scored 24 points, and there was a man averaging 8 yards per carry, and he had 136 yards rushing. We scored 24 points. There were, when it was 14-3 at the half, it honestly could have been 35-0. It could have been. Now, nobody is going to score every time out. Nobody is going to have no hiccups. Nobody is going to have a perfect game. But listen, on the season, we are 0-20 on third downs that are 3rd and 10 plus. There are so many times where it will be 2nd and 10, and we will just say, let's run the ball straight up the middle into nothing. You are running the ball straight into Vita Vea. I don't know when that's a good idea. I don't know when that's a good idea. It looks like never. Because as I said, you keep running the ball up the middle, you are getting 3.6 yards per carry. Jahmyr Gibbs last year averaged for the year, I think, 5.5 yards a carry for the entire season. He didn't have too many games where he was 3.6 yards per carry. And this is going to be great for his average for the season, 8 yards per carry. But it's just, again, the eye test. We need to get Jahmyr Gibbs the ball in space. As I said, David Montgomery was 13 carries for 21 yards, 1.6 yards per carry. I just said that Jahmyr Gibbs gave you 8 yards a carry with that one run. He gave you 3.6 yards per carry with the regular dosage of what you were doing, Johnny Mo, up the middle in Vita Vea's face, running into the teeth of the defense. He gave you 3.6. Without the benefit of a huge run, David Montgomery gave you 13 carries up the middle into the teeth of the defense for 21 yards, 1.6 yards per carry. This can't be good. This can't be what you're doing for the entire year. This needs to be fixed. So going into the bye week, let's get healthy. Let's get back to the drawing board with this offense, because while we're saying Usama bin who, Usama bin who, Usama bin who, games like this can crop up very often. Jameson Williams being used as a decoy needs to stop. It just needs to stop. I need to see Johnny Mo get everybody involved. Okay? Because there's no way in hell we have 15 weapons and only 2 of them are available. You understand what I'm saying? It's just not. You had a very balanced carry share between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Jahmyr had 17, David Montgomery had 13. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 yards per carry, David Montgomery, 1.6. You got to make it make sense. So we got to stop doing the types of things where we go, oh, you haven't seen a running game like ours. Like for the Cleveland Browns situation, that was a little back and forth, a little tete-a-tete, and all that stuff. That's great. That was cute and everything. But when you run the ball directly into Vita Vea every time, I'm sorry, that doesn't make any damn sense. So let's make sure that we enjoy the win, that we get healthy in the bye week. But in the bye week, we need to do some soul searching. I envision Mike McDaniels getting fired very, very soon. So go ahead and ask him to come on in as an offensive assistant just to cover Johnny Mo's blind spots, maybe to bounce some things off of him. Because you're supposed to be bouncing things off of David Shaw, who was very, instrumental in the running game. Stanford had that big running game. And we also know who went to Stanford. You know what I'm saying? No, that wasn't me coughing, clearing my throat, but CMC. Okay. He went to Stanford, right? Okay. All right. I mean, we look, we've got dynamic running minds in there. We've got Hank Fraley in there. So everybody who's got a hand in this. I heard Troy Aikman say that they went away from the zone blocking scheme because we've got Tate Ratledge and we've got Christian Mahogany in the middle, and it's hard to adapt. Well, you got to get them to adapt because if you're just going straight down blocking and they're not opening up the holes like we want them to, 3.6 yards per carry is what you can hope for. So, listen, you may call me crazy. You may say a dub is a dub, but I'm saying, what does it look like? That's all I got. But I said nip tuck, Detroit and Green Bay. That's at the top of the NFC North. We got 5 wins, they got 4. We got 2 losses, they got 1 and a tie. And they say that they're at the top of the NFC North, but all it takes is for them to falter one time. And let's look for it to happen soon. Yes, I am being a homer with that one. But can the Green Bay Packers still go undefeated? I don't know. You let me know in the comments. But once again, the Motor City Cats are indeed back at it. We came to give you stats, not none of that static. Whatever you do, make sure you keep your Lions and your NFC North news pragmatic. And if you don't agree, if you think I'm overreacting, if you think I'm being overly critical, if you think that my eyes are lying to me, let me know in the comments below, and I'll tell you why they're not. And we are out of here. Peace. What up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy, Motor City Don P here. Listen, if you want to continue keeping your Lions news pragmatic, if you want to keep getting the stats and not none of that static, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share and let everybody know what's going on around here. And turn on your notifications, because how else would you know that we're up in here keeping your Lions news pragmatic? Appreciate you once again, and we are out. Peace.